Today we're going to connect the pitched roof to the flat roof.
And we'll have the folks from America's Test Kitchen tell us what they think about our kitchen.
You can look out the window while you're doing the dishes. This was, part of the original kitchen. Definitely worth keeping.
All right.
And we're going to stucco our back wall. You're going to push, push, and whip it right up. Okay. Maybe we should have got a couple extra bags.
There's a lot coming up today, so stick around. Tommy's guys continue to work on the front of the house, and the changes they've made are pretty dramatic. Now, you may remember when we first got here, the house was really just a collection of unappealing boxes. The biggest box was this garage. It had a flat roof, and it just sort of protruded out forward here. Then there was the box of the kitchen, which bumped out, and hidden behind it was the front door. You could barely even see the front door thanks to that kitchen bump out and a bunch of overgrown bushes. But now, well, these changes, they completely changed the look of the house. We've got a new pitched roof over an entryway that's been pulled forward, and that's got some deep overhangs. And we put a pitched roof on the garage. And the transformation, well, it makes it look like a completely different house. Tommy's finished up some shingling here on this wall. He's got a little bit more shingling to do up on the second floor, and when that's complete, all of the shingling on the front of the house will be done. Now we've got some new walls out back thanks to the addition, and Tommy's getting to work on those right now. The foundation of the original house is poured concrete, and because of the slope and grade, out back we had a walkout basement. Now we extended the foundation wall beneath the new addition, but back here we've got a different system, Tommy.
Right, this is actually an insulated foundation system. When we did a block system where you pile them on top of one another, and in the center there's a core of concrete, steel reinforced.
And on either side of that we've got this foam, and we've got to make this look like this. And how are we going to do that?
Well, to do that we're going to parge it with an acrylic stucco. But the first thing I have to do is I have to go over the wall system using this rasp right here to level off any imperfections in the wall.
So sort of a trowel here with these embedded stones?
Right, right. And you basically just drag it over the wall and it levels it right off. Once we've leveled off the wall and roughened the surface, the next thing we want to do is tape the joints. So we use this fiberglass tape and stick it over all of the joints. It's a lot like doing drywall.
Mm-hmm. And then once this tape is on, it's time to put that first course of stucco over the tape?
Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply it right over the tape, just at the joint. I want to put on just enough to cover the tape, and I want to keep it flat also. Want to give it a try, Kevin?
Sure.
All right, now what you want to do is take it off the hook, push it right onto the trowel, go right over the joint. You want to bridge the edge of the tape and the wall. To the joint. There you go. Keep it thicker in the center if you can. Start right there in the middle. There you go. Now push. Yeah, there you go. See? Now you go out. Now come back perpendicular with the trowel, about a 45-degree angle. Yeah. See? Nice. Now push down into it and put it right on. See? Now you got it. Now put it right on. Now drag it down.
That's big.
Now you're gonna push, push, and whip it right up. Okay. Maybe we should have got a couple extra bags. Now here we have an outside corner to deal with because the window is recessed slightly. So what I did is I wrapped the tape, keeping it nice and tight to the foam. We're not going to put a corner bead on here, so I'm going to eyeball that. So I'm going to start by loading it on my trowel. I'm going to work it into the corner. I'm going to take my trowel, I want to hold it 90 degrees to the window and slowly bring it down, scraping the excess off, but still leaving enough on to cover the tape.
I have to admit, Tommy, after having that trowel and hawk in my hands, a lot harder than it looks, or at least harder than you make it look.
Now the next step is to skim the entire wall with a base coat. Then we want to reinforce that base coat using this fiberglass mesh right here. What I want to do is I want to put this on thick enough just to cover the foam. Okay, Kevin, take your end all the way to the corner. I'm going to take my end to this corner. Now push it tight to the corner.
To me, good.
Yeah. Now we want to get this end under the windowsill, right into the wet base there. Look at that.
Oh, that's great.
I'm just forcing the mesh into the base coat, trying to keep it flat. Now we can put a skim coat over the mesh. But that's it for the first coat. Now we have to let this dry for a couple of days before we do the last coat. Let me show you on this other wall here. All right, this side of the foundation right here, Kevin, we did a couple of days ago, and the base coat's all dry and we're ready for the finished coat.
And so what is the finished coat going to be?
The finished coat right here is actually a water-based material. It's an acrylic coating with an aggregate in it, and we're actually going to trowel it right on the wall.
And this has already been tinted to the new color of the house?
That's right. We're going to work it on just like the other, right up the wall. I only have 20 minutes to work for the whole thing. I'm going to let it set for a few minutes, then I'm going to skim over it and lay that down.
And you're adding a little bit of water just to help knock it down?
Well, this sets up pretty quick, this acrylic stuff. So I want to reactivate it a little bit with moisture. See, that fills in the little voids right there. Balances it right off.
Now you're done, Tommy?
I'm done, and the wall's done.
Looks great.
Looks pretty good. And by the way, thanks for your help. Oh, the camera's not rolling, is it?
We are making some significant changes to our kitchen, and to help us with all of the decisions that go into that, we have asked Chris Kimball from America's Test Kitchen to come and help us out. He has been in his fair share of kitchens, including right here in our very own kitchen a couple months ago. Chris, good to see you again.
You worrying I forgot? No, I remember.
Not at all.
I kind of like this old kitchen away. I don't know where to go.
Well, it's gone, and you like some things about it, but I recall that the size was problematic for most of us because there was a wall right here, and it was a tiny kitchen.
It was tiny, yeah.
Long and narrow, it was yellow, and it probably hadn't been touched since the 40s when it was built. So it is much changed. In fact, it's about 3 times bigger than it was. We took it all the way out here to the dining room wall, and the homeowners wanted that. They've got 2 young kids, and they're going to do a lot of living in this space.
So can I just say that in America, bigger is always better.
Absolutely.
But not necessarily, you're there already, not necessarily true in kitchens. In Paris, you've been there many times, right?
I've heard of it.
Can you spell it? That's what I want to know. So small kitchens, great food. A big kitchen is about opportunity. It gives you opportunities to do a lot of things, more living in it. It also means, though, some problems. It's harder to find things, get around. So it's good and bad. It's not necessarily all good.
So bigger is not necessarily better, but bigger is what they're going to get.
Yep.
And let's talk about all the things that they're going to get. You've seen the plans. Let's just walk through it. We've got a pantry wall right here, dry goods on the left, a stainless side-by-side freezer refrigerator over here on the right. And then on this wall, the centerpiece is the kitchen sink, which you like.
No, I like a big farmhouse sink. I like the window. You can look out the window while you're doing the dishes. This was, a part of the original kitchen. Definitely worth keeping.
All right, we've got upper cabinets on either side, granite countertops going all across here, and in fact, all across uniformly throughout the kitchen with cabinets underneath. And then over here, the stove. And you actually helped us with this. The stove originally was going to be in the island, but you didn't like that. You wanted it as dedicated cook space.
After 30 years in this business, someone actually took a piece of my advice. I'm thrilled. But I do notice, and by the way, the reason I didn't like it was it broke up this space. You had very little prep space. I did notice that you couldn't resist. The fire went away, but the water showed up. There's a nice little sink here. A couple comments. One is you have some stools here, kids sitting around, you got books, people washing lettuce, there's water, there's books. In other words, you've taken almost an 8-foot space or whatever it is and divided that in half. Now, if you cook like I do, I'm a mess. I like a lot of space. And what if 2 people are cooking? Someone's doing dessert, someone's doing a stew. You might want more space. So the benefit of having this sink here, there's one right there.
So
for me, the sink would go, it would free up this entire space, and that I love, is a lot of cooking space. You always need more space than you think.
No fire, no water in your
No fire,
eyes.
no water, just give me countertop.
We'll take it to the homeowners. What else should we be telling them?
Well, one other thing you think about is electric appliances. You have a standing mixer, you have a food processor.
Right.
Is this enough room to get them underneath? The other question is, what about all the other ones? You have rice cookers, you have crock pots, you have toasters,
Sure.
you have toaster ovens. Are those all going to be sitting out on the counter?
Well, let me ask you, where do you want them?
Well, personally, in my kitchen, I just like everything I like everything on the counter. I like a mess. I can get to it. But these folks obviously like a little more design. So I would think about this. There are 3 drawers here.
Yep.
Pull it down to 2. Combine these 2. Pull it out. Nice heavy hardware on rollers. You can get that rice cooker, that crock pot can come right out to the counter. It's only about 1.5 feet down. you're all set. It's easy storage.
All right, well, like you say, you may like a messy kitchen, but I don't think these folks do. We've got plenty of cabinets where we can hide all of this stuff, even if it's in a drawer or possibly in some of these cabinets.
So okay, what's this hide thing? I mean, it used to be, like Victorian days, everything was open shelving, even in the 30s and 40s, open shelving. Open shelving, you can find stuff. And here's my theory. There's about 15% of stuff in the kitchen you need all the time. Measuring cups, scales, a rolling pin, this and that, a saucepan, three-quart saucepan, a skillet. I want to get that stuff. I don't have to open a door.
And you want to see it,
though. You go, honey, where'd you put that skillet, that frying pan? I want to see it. So I would take the doors off of here, make this for baking, muffin pans, baking sheets, cooling racks, vertical slides so you can get to it. This is completely open. All the stuff you need every day. You can find it. Even if someone put it back on the wrong shelf, you can find it.
You want good access.
I want good access. Now, one other thing. This is a side-by-side freezer refrigerator. This isn't too wide. I have one like, I know because I made the mistake.
The freezer's narrow, you're saying?
Yeah, you get a big casserole you want to throw it in. So one thing they might do is in the basement get a cheap freezer and a refrigerator, very inexpensive, throw them down there. So if you want to store something big, this is good for everyday stuff like ice cream, frozen peas, but
it's definitely going to hold my ice cream. All right, but that's a good point, and we'll take it to the homeowners. Here's our time to chime in. Anything else that we want to give them? Any other notes?
One other thing, this is all very well designed. The materials, the colors, everything is of a piece, but you might think about organic evolution, and that is it's functional. It looks like it evolved over time. So, for example, this is all the same kind of cabinetry. You might take a family heirloom, antique of some kind, put that here. Everything doesn't quite match because the question is, do you want it all to be a suite, as if it came off the back of a truck, or it looks like it's been here, it's generations of people have cooked in here. It's personal expression, like Julia Child's kitchen. It was a mess, but it was Julia's. You knew you were Julia's kitchen. So that was just something to think about instead of an overall design concept.
We've designed a beautiful kitchen, and you want messy and eclectic.
I like tough. Messy. I am messy, and I am eclectic.
So
there you go.
Well, we like the fact that you're tough, and if you're willing, we'll probably ask you back for round 3 and see how that goes.
To see if anybody actually listened to any of my advice. We'll see.
Tommy and his guys added a new entryway, and it has a new pitched roof, and that intersects an existing flat roof that is on top of the kitchen bump out. So, Tommy, you've got to bring the new roof and have it married up to the old roof.
Right, and I want to make sure that connection right there is watertight.
And you're actually going to be using 2 different materials because we've got asphalt going on the new roof and there's an existing rubber roof here.
Right, we're going to use asphalt, which is an architectural shingle right here on this roof, and then in the valley, to make the marriage between this roof and that, we're going to reuse a piece of rubber.
And this is really a vulnerable point, the valleys, right?
Right, a valley can always leak, so you want to make sure you do it right so it doesn't leak.
All right, well, let's talk about doing it right. How do we get started?
Okay, what I want to do is I want to cut my shingles and I want to make sure that the joints stagger at least 6 inches to keep them watertight. Now this is a architectural shingle and the pattern is random over the roof. So I want to cut my shingles so that the stagger will be random.
Cut them, but you want to minimize your waste, so you've got a fixed measurement that they suggest you cut them at?
Right, the first measurement that I want to cut them at is 7.5.
And this is actually on the bundle. It's basically on the instructions.
Yeah, it's in the directions. You can't go wrong if you read the directions. So I'm going to save those 2 pieces.
We'll use these.
All right, now the next one I'm going to cut 14 inches.
So now we've got 4 different size shingles.
Right, now we're going to take the longest shingle to start with. And I want to take it and make sure I overhang the outside edge by about 1/2 inch. And I want to make sure I line this bottom edge of the shingle with this edge of the shingle right there. I want to tack one end, make sure I'm lined up on the second end. Now I take the next longest shingle, I bring it out to the outside edge, put my 1/2 inch overhang, line the edges up on the bottom, tack them. And we go down one more.
I'm way ahead of you now, Tommy.
You're getting it there, Sonny.
All right, now you got your staggered pattern for the next 4 courses.
That's right, and all the joints will be watertight.
I'll get you some more shingles.
Now we need to cut the next shingle for the second row. I cut this little corner out so it will slide right in here, like that.
Nice.
Line the shingle up, tack it off. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to seal this space in here at the top of that step flashing that we've covered. Really put a lot of sealant right in there. Really want to fill it up. So now that it's oozing out pretty well, I'm going to run it right up on top of this joint right here. I want to get a nice thick bead right here. underneath that, run it right down here, and across here for backup. Push that right in there. Okay, now what I want to do is I need to take a piece of uncured rubber and fold it right in here.
Is that tar you're painting on there? What is that?
This is actually contact cement.
Really?
Yep. There's actually an adhesive on the back of this that will marry up to the contact cement that we just applied. So I'm going to lay it right down, overhanging it. Okay, so I'm going to push that right in there. Lay it right up on the roof. All right, so now with the uncured rubber, when I stretch it, it stays stretched. All right, so now I can stretch it, forcing it down around, and I can work it right into that caulking.
Oh, that's nice.
I can push it right in there. So now we have a nice tight bond there, and that's already watertight at that level. So now what I want to do is I want to continue this flashing right over to cover this. But before I put it on, I want to run some sealer underneath that. I'm going to run a nice thick bead. Push it right down, overlap the other piece of copy. Work it right in there. Okay, I just want to tap this a little bit, smooth that edge out. Okay, that's good. Okay, now I'm going to just put a couple of tacks in that. All right, now we're ready to seal this valley right here. And to do that, we're going to use a piece of rubber roofing. And we have to glue it to the existing roofing and lay it up on top of this tar paper. Okay, so now we're going to take some more of the cement. We're going to paint it on each piece.
So now this is going to go on both sides of the rubber that's already down and the rubber that's going down?
That's right. And then once it's dry to the touch, it will stick to each other. Ready? Now we're going to try to pull it over and line this edge up. Now I'm just going to cut this excess off that's hanging over, flush with my copper drip edge. I'm going to cut this over like this, right over onto the shingles, but I don't want to cut through the shingles, so cutting lightly. There, that's nice and tight right there. Okay, now just cut this shingle right around like that. Get that out of the way. And that's going to sit right on top of the rubber roof like that. Let's get a little mark right here on the rubber. And I want you to put a nice thick bead right up above that line, about an inch away. Yeah, right up, nice and thick. All right, now I'm going to lay it right in there right now. Yeah, it's going to be a nice tight seal right there.
If I didn't know any better, Tommy, I think we were building a boat.
Okay, now I'm going to cut this one to length, and then we're going to start with some metal step flashing. Basically a 5x7 piece of aluminum flashing. I bent it on an L. Push it right on the roof into that wet caulking above the line of the lower shingle.
So we don't see it.
You're not going to see it. I want to hide it. Again, nail this shingle down. Nail up high in the flashing. And we're ready for the next shingle and the next piece of flashing. Now, if I was to take one continuous piece of metal flashing and put it on there, the roof would leak. The water could run underneath one shingle, go across the roof, and get down and below. When you step flash, if the water gets in here, it's going to hit the flashing below and exit. Okay, that's it for the cap. Now we just got to cut out the valley. I'm just cutting the shingles along the valley to neaten it up. Nice thick bead to stop any water from backing up under the shingle.
All right.
All set.
All right, so we got ourselves a new connection between the pitched roof and the flat one.
And it's not going to leak.
I'm actually looking forward to the next rainstorm.
You are? Not me.
Down here in the basement, we're going to have a new family room that's going to sit beneath a new sun porch. And if you look up here in the joist bay, You can see that we've added some radiant heat just to provide a little bit of floor warming for that sun porch and keep it more comfortable.
We're also adding an R30 fiberglass batt to make sure the heat is dispersed evenly throughout the floor. And also the fiberglass will give you some sound control from the family room to the basement playroom.
So fiberglass for you guys down here, not foam?
I don't like using foam here because it tends to encapsulate the tubing and not disperse the heat evenly throughout the floor.
All right, so fiberglass it is. Looks different than what we're used to seeing. What is this stuff?
Well, this is an R30 fiberglass batt. The color is unusual only because they eliminated the binders and the formaldehyde in the material.
Does that come at a greater cost?
No, same price.
All right, good to hear. So fiberglass down here, and we've actually got a lot more work going on upstairs. Thanks, Tony.
Thank you.
Up here at the second floor of the house, the exterior walls have no insulation in them at all. To solve that problem, we're going to blow cellulose into the wall cavities.
Which is chopped up recycled newspaper.
Right? It's treated with borate, so it's an insecticide and also a fire retardant.
And we've got to get into these walls, so it starts with a hole.
It starts with drilling a hole in the wall cavity relatively high. Then you're going to take this plastic tube and you're going to stick it down the wall cavity as far as you can get it. If you hit an obstruction, then you have to drill another hole below that obstruction.
You're blowing in the cellulose and you're actually packing it in there pretty tight.
Yeah, you want to pack it in there nice and firm. You don't want it to settle over time.
Fill up the bay, cap the hole with some styrofoam,
Yeah, and then you spackle over those and use the styrofoam so the spackle won't crack.
and the room's done.
And the room is done. Now, if you notice, we have the sunroom all plastic off because we can't be in there. They're spraying the foam insulation.
So in the sunroom's floor, we've got that radiant and the insulation that we saw from the basement.
Right. But in here, we also have a ceiling that also doubles as a roof. So we have a code requirement that we have to meet a minimum of R30 in that ceiling.
And you've got 2x6 ceiling joists in there, which is a narrow cavity, which means we can't get R30 from either fiberglass or even open cell foam.
Exactly. So we're going to spray a closed cell foam in there, and that will get us above our R30.
All right. We got the windows open, a little time has passed, and we've cleared the air out, so it's safe to be back in the room.
The guys are fine-tuning where they miss with the saw, get it nice and smooth for the blue board.
And then they've got to just put some more spray foam in the walls.
Right, more in the walls.
So foam in this room, fiberglass in the floor, and then cellulose throughout the rest of the house.
This house is going to be nice and tight.
All right, well, it's getting warmer already. So until next time, I'm Kevin O'Connor
And I'm Tom Silva.
for This Old House.